Have you ever been ghosted, ignored, or left hanging, only for the same person to come back out of nowhere, as if they never walked away? It feels surreal, doesn't it? One moment, they've disappeared from your life, leaving a trail of questions and hurt, and the next, they're back with a text, a call, or even a knock on your door. But why? Why do they return after no contact? This isn't just a story about relationships. It's about human nature, about understanding what really drives people, and, perhaps most importantly, about recognizing the patterns that can either empower or entangle us. Too often we accept surface-level explanations. They missed you, they made a mistake, they realized they love you. But the truth runs much deeper. And when you uncover it, it has the power to transform not just how you see them, but also how you see yourself. Right now, you might be grappling with the confusion and excitement of their return. Maybe you're wondering, should I respond? Do they deserve another chance? Is this even real? These questions hold weight, but first, you need clarity. In this video, we're going to dissect the real reasons they come back after no contact. Together, we'll break through the myths and dig into the raw psychology of it all. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand their motives, you'll understand your own power in this dynamic. You'll gain a Stoic perspective on relationships, one rooted in authenticity and self-respect, not fleeting emotions or shallow reassurances. Stay with me until the end, because this is where we'll uncover the most transformative lesson of all: how to rise above the noise, reclaim your emotional freedom, and move forward with unshakable confidence. 1. The psychological impact of silence. Silence holds a power that words can never match. It lingers, it provokes, and it demands attention. When you implement no contact after a breakup or conflict, you're not just pulling away physically, you're creating a psychological void that forces the other person to face their thoughts. The absence becomes a reflection, and reflections are often uncomfortable. But why does this silence have such an intense effect? And why does it so often prompt someone to return? To understand this, we have to dig deep into human psychology. People are drawn to certainty. When we know something is within our grasp, it brings a sense of comfort, even if we don't consciously recognize it. The person who left you or stopped responding likely did so because on some level, they believed they had control over the situation. Perhaps they thought you'd always be available, ready to answer their calls or respond to their texts. But when you go silent, you challenge that assumption. Suddenly, they're confronted with the possibility that you might truly be gone. This creates an inner conflict for them, and that conflict often manifests as a strong desire to reach out. They begin to wonder, what changed? Why aren't they chasing me? Did I misjudge their feelings? Or worse, have they moved on to someone else? These questions can become a storm in their mind, especially if they were used to being the center of your attention. But their return after your silence isn't always as flattering as it seems. It's tempting to interpret it as a sign of genuine regret or affection, but we need to ask ourselves, is their return about me or is it about them? Silence can trigger a phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect, where unfinished business or unresolved situations stick in the mind far more than completed ones. Your silence becomes that unresolved situation for them. It's a loose thread they can't stop pulling. This isn't necessarily love, it's curiosity, perhaps even an attempt to regain the upper hand in a dynamic they no longer control. Let's not underestimate the role of ego in their return. When someone is no longer receiving the validation they once took for granted, it can be jarring. They might have thought you'd be waiting for their call, but instead, your silence sends a clear message. You're no longer at their disposal. This shift in the dynamic can be unsettling, and their return is often an effort to restore their sense of importance. They might not even realize this is what's driving them. They may genuinely believe they're reaching out for closure or to rekindle things. But at its core, their return could be rooted in their discomfort with feeling irrelevant or forgotten. This is where Stoicism provides a valuable framework for understanding relationships. In Stoicism, we're taught to separate what we can control from what we cannot. Your silence is something within your control. Their reaction to it is not. The Stoic approach reminds us to remain calm and measured, to resist the temptation to read too much into their actions, and to focus instead on maintaining our own sense of peace. Silence also has a way of magnifying uncertainty. When you are actively communicating, they could measure your feelings and intentions. But when you step away, that clarity vanishes. It's like walking into a dark room where everything is suddenly unfamiliar. This uncertainty can provoke anxiety, especially if they relied on your presence to feel grounded. But here's the thing: their anxiety is not your responsibility. Consider this. If someone returns to you purely out of curiosity or a need for reassurance, is that a foundation for a healthy relationship? The answer lies in their behavior when they do return. Do they come back with accountability and a willingness to address what went wrong? Or do they return with vague excuses and half-hearted attempts at connection? Silence can reveal their true intentions, but only if you're willing to observe their actions without bias. Let's explore another critical question. What does their return say about you? It's easy to see their return as a validation of your worth, as if their presence is proof that you're irreplaceable. But Stoic relationships challenge us to look inward, to recognize that our worth is not defined by another person's actions. Their return is not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their own inner conflict. One of the most powerful lessons of Stoicism is the idea that we cannot control others, only ourselves. Your silence is a decision you made for your well-being, a choice to prioritize your peace. If they return, it's not because you forced them to, it's because they're grappling with the void your absence created. But that void is theirs to face, not yours to fill. Another layer to consider is timing. If their return feels calculated or overly casual, it's worth questioning their motives. Why now? What has changed? Often people return when they sense they're losing their grip on a situation. Perhaps they've noticed that you're thriving without them. Maybe they've seen you moving forward, and it's triggered a fear of being left behind. But is that fear rooted in love, or is it just a reaction to losing control? Here's the hard truth. Not every return is a reason for celebration. Sometimes it's a test, a way for them to see if they still have influence over you. This is why it's crucial to remain grounded in your own values and priorities. A Stoic approach doesn't mean you shut the door entirely, but it does mean you open it with caution. Ask yourself, am I responding out of hope or out of fear? Am I allowing them back into my life because I believe in their sincerity, or because I'm afraid of letting go? Ultimately, silence is as much about self-discovery as it is about creating space for the other person to reflect. In your absence, they're forced to confront their own emotions, their own shortcomings. But more importantly, you're given the opportunity to do the same. Use this time to reflect on what you truly want and need in a relationship. If their return aligns with your values and growth, it may be worth exploring. If not, let their return be a reminder of how far you've come, not an invitation to go backward. Silence is not a game, it's a boundary. And boundaries are an act of self-respect. When someone returns after no contact, their intentions will speak louder than their words. Listen closely, but don't let their actions dictate your worth. In the end, it's not about whether they return. It's about what you've learned in their absence and how you choose to move forward. 2. Unfinished emotional business. When someone returns after no contact, it often stems from unfinished emotional business. Think about it. Humans are emotional creatures, and emotions don't just vanish because a relationship ends. What was left unsaid, unresolved, or even misunderstood lingers, creating a kind of emotional weight. That weight pulls them back toward you, whether they're conscious of it or not. But what exactly drives this need to revisit the past? Sometimes it's guilt. They might feel regret over the way they treated you or the abruptness with which things ended. Guilt is a powerful motivator. It nags at the mind, demanding resolution. They might replay the moments of conflict or recall words they wish they could take back. But here's the critical question. Are they reaching out because they want to take accountability, or are they simply looking for relief from their own discomfort? Other times the return is driven by longing. Even in the most turbulent relationships, there are moments of connection, of shared joy and vulnerability. These moments can become amplified in their memory over time. Nostalgia has a way of painting the past in a golden hue, softening the edges of pain and emphasizing the beauty of what once was. But is their longing based on the reality of your relationship, or are they chasing an idealized version of it? Unfinished emotional business can also manifest as a need for closure. They might feel there were things left unresolved, questions unanswered, feelings unexplored. Closure can be a legitimate reason to reconnect, but it's worth asking. Whose closure are they seeking? Is it about healing the relationship, or is it about easing their own conscience? Stoicism teaches us to approach these situations with clarity and detachment. It's not about rejecting them outright, but about evaluating their motives with a calm and measured perspective. What's fascinating is that their return often reveals more about their emotional state than yours. If they left thinking they could move on easily, they may now be confronting the reality that moving on is rarely simple. Emotional attachments don't dissolve neatly, they leave traces, lingering in quiet moments or surfacing when life becomes uncertain. This is why some people return when they're facing challenges in their own lives. It's not that they suddenly see your value, it's that they're seeking comfort in the familiar. But here's a vital consideration. Unfinished emotional business is not a free pass to re-enter someone's life. If their return disrupts your peace or reopens wounds you've worked hard to heal, you have every right to protect yourself. Remember, in Stoic relationships, self-respect is paramount. You cannot control their actions, but you can control how you respond. This brings us to the heart of the matter. What do you want to do with their return? It's easy to get swept up in the emotions of the moment, to see their reappearance as a sign that they've changed, or that the connection was too strong to let go. But pause and reflect. Have they shown you that they've grown, or are they still caught in the same patterns? The power of Stoicism lies in its focus on reason over emotion. When faced with their return, ask yourself, what do I stand to gain by letting them back in? What do I stand to lose? Their return may give you a chance to resolve lingering questions, but it may also stir up old pain. Balancing these possibilities requires self-awareness and strength. There's also a deeper question to consider. Have you truly finished your own emotional business with them? It's easy to point the finger at them, to view their return as a reflection of their unresolved issues. But what about your own? If their reappearance triggers strong emotions, whether excitement, anger, or confusion, it's worth exploring what those feelings reveal about your own healing process. Have you moved forward, or are there still parts of you that feel tied to the relationship? One of the most empowering aspects of Stoicism is its emphasis on self-mastery. Their return might feel like a test, but it's also an opportunity. You can choose to engage with them from a place of strength and clarity, not from a place of need or uncertainty. You can choose to set boundaries, to demand accountability, or even to walk away entirely. The choice is yours. As we reflect on this idea of unfinished emotional business, let's take a moment to connect. If you've ever experienced someone returning after no contact, and this resonates with you, like this video and comment number 1. Share your thoughts, your stories, or even your questions in the comments below. And if you're finding value in this discussion, don't forget to subscribe for more insights into relationships, stoicism, and personal growth. Your engagement matters because it reminds us all that these experiences are universal. We're not alone in navigating the complexities of love and loss. Together, we're building a community rooted in wisdom, strength, and authenticity. Their return, while significant, is just one part of the journey. What truly matters is how you respond, not with impulse or emotion, but with clarity and purpose. That's the foundation of Stoic relationships, and it's a foundation worth building. 3. The ego factor. When someone returns after no contact, their actions are often tied to their ego. The ego is a complex force. It's the part of us that craves validation, recognition, and control. For many people, the decision to leave a relationship is initially fueled by the belief that they're making the right choice, that they're in control of the narrative. But when the other person doesn't react as expected, when silence replaces pursuit, that sense of control begins to crumble. This can trigger a profound need to reassert their importance, and their return becomes a way to reclaim what they feel they've lost. Let's consider this dynamic more closely. When they left, They may have assumed they held all the power. Perhaps they believed you would reach out, that you would fight to keep them in your life. But when you choose silence, when you resist the urge to chase, you shift the balance. Your lack of reaction challenges their assumptions and forces them to question their position in your life. This questioning can be deeply unsettling, especially for someone whose ego was heavily invested in being the one in control. Why does this happen? Ego thrives on certainty. It wants to know that it matters, that it has an impact. When you go silent, you deny them that certainty. You create a space where they can no longer predict or dictate your behavior. In this void, doubt begins to creep in. Have they forgotten me? Have they moved on? Was I wrong to leave? These questions don't stem from love or regret. They stem from the ego's discomfort with feeling irrelevant. Here's where it gets tricky. The ego doesn't like to admit vulnerability. If someone returns after no contact, they may not acknowledge that their actions are driven by a bruised ego. Instead, they might frame their return as concern for you, a sudden realization of your value, or even a desire to reconnect on a deeper level. But it's essential to look beyond their words and examine their actions. Are they truly showing accountability and growth, or are they simply seeking to restore their sense of importance? Stoicism offers valuable guidance here. One of the core principles of Stoicism is the practice of observing without attachment, of recognizing what is happening without letting it dictate your emotions. When someone returns, the Stoic response is to approach the situation with curiosity rather than assumption. Instead of immediately reacting, take a step back and ask yourself, what are they seeking? Is their return about reconciliation, or is it about regaining control? The ego's need for validation is not inherently malicious. It's a natural part of being human. But when someone's return is primarily ego-driven, it raises important questions about the future of the relationship. Can a relationship built on power dynamics truly be healthy? Can it withstand the challenges of vulnerability and mutual respect? These are questions worth pondering before you decide how to respond. Another important aspect to consider is the role of self-awareness. If their return is rooted in ego, they may not even realize it. They might genuinely believe they're acting out of love or a desire to repair the relationship. But as Stoicism teaches us, intentions alone are not enough. Actions and the patterns they reveal are far more telling. If their return feels performative, if it seems more about proving something to themselves or others, it's worth approaching the situation with caution. There's also a deeper layer to this dynamic: the impact of their return on your own ego. When someone comes back, it can feel like validation. It's easy to interpret their actions as proof that you mattered to them, that your silence had an effect. But this feeling, while understandable, can be dangerous. If you allow their return to inflate your own ego, you risk falling into the same trap they did, basing your self-worth on someone else's actions. This is where the Stoic perspective becomes invaluable. True confidence doesn't come from external validation, it comes from within. If you've embraced silence as a means of protecting your peace and prioritizing your growth, their return should not disrupt that foundation. Instead, it should reinforce the importance of staying grounded in your own values. When someone returns after no contact, it's an opportunity for reflection, not just about their motives, but about your own growth. Have you built a stronger sense of self in their absence? Have you learned to navigate your emotions with clarity and resilience? Their return is not a test of your worth. It's a chance to affirm your commitment to your own well-being. It's also worth noting that not every ego-driven return is manipulative or harmful. Sometimes their actions are a reflection of genuine confusion or an inability to process their emotions in a healthy way. But this doesn't absolve them of responsibility. Regardless of their intentions, it's essential to hold them accountable for their actions and to prioritize your own needs in the process. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoicism is its emphasis on personal responsibility. You cannot control whether someone returns or why they do so, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to engage with their return from a place of strength and self-awareness, rather than letting their actions dictate your emotions or decisions. In the end, their return is less about them and more about you. It's a chance to evaluate where you stand, to reaffirm your boundaries, and to decide what you truly want in a relationship. Their ego may have brought them back, but your response will determine the next chapter. Will you allow their return to disrupt your progress, or will you use it as an opportunity to deepen your understanding of yourself and your values? Ultimately, the Stoic path is not about denying emotions or avoiding relationships. It's about approaching them with wisdom, balance, and integrity. When someone returns after no contact, let their actions serve as a mirror, reflecting not just their intentions but also your growth. This is how we turn challenges into opportunities and how we build relationships rooted in authenticity and respect. 4. Loneliness or convenience. When someone returns after no contact, it's often not about love or reconciliation. It's about loneliness or convenience. These are two forces that can drive people to seek connections, even if those connections are no longer healthy or meaningful. While it might feel flattering at first to have someone reappear, understanding the deeper motivations behind their return is essential. What role do loneliness and convenience play in these situations, and what does it mean for you? Loneliness is a universal experience. It's not just the absence of company, it's the absence of connection. When someone feels isolated or adrift, they instinctively seek familiarity. If you shared a meaningful bond with this person, you might be one of the first people they think of when the weight of loneliness settles in. But ask yourself, are they reaching out because they genuinely miss me, or are they simply trying to escape their own solitude? Loneliness often creates a distorted sense of urgency. In moments of isolation, people can convince themselves that rekindling an old connection will bring comfort or relief. This isn't necessarily malicious, it's human nature. But as Stoicism teaches us, we must examine actions through the lens of intention and impact. Is their return truly about you, or are they seeking to fill a void within themselves? This distinction matters because it speaks to the sustainability of their intentions. Relationships based on convenience or temporary relief rarely stand the test of time. Convenience is another powerful motivator that can explain why someone returns. Life is full of challenges, and when things get tough, people often gravitate toward what's familiar and easy. If they're struggling, whether it's with a failed new relationship, a stressful life situation, or simply the realization that they no longer have the support you once provided, they might see you as a safe harbor. But here's the question. Do you want to be someone's convenience, or do you want to be someone's priority? Stoic relationships demand more than convenience. They require mutual respect, authenticity, and a willingness to grow together. If someone returns because they find it easier to reconnect with you than to face their own challenges, it's a sign that their intentions may not align with your values. True connection comes from a place of strength, not from seeking to avoid discomfort. It's also important to recognize the emotional toll that loneliness and convenience can take, not just on them but on you. When someone returns for these reasons, it can create a cycle of dependency. They may lean on you for emotional support without offering the same in return, leaving you feeling drained and unfulfilled. This is why boundaries are crucial. As Stoicism teaches us, we must protect our inner peace and ensure that our actions align with our values. The key question to ask is this: what do I truly want from this connection? It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of their return, to see it as a second chance or a sign of unfinished business. But before you make any decisions, take a step back and reflect. Are their actions consistent with someone who is ready to contribute to a healthy relationship, or are they simply seeking comfort without consideration for your needs? This is not to say that every return motivated by loneliness or convenience is insincere. People are complex, and their reasons for reaching out are often a mix of genuine emotions and self-serving desires. But as someone who values Stoicism and personal growth, your response should come from a place of clarity and self-awareness. Don't let their needs overshadow your own. Instead, use this opportunity to evaluate whether their return aligns with your goals and priorities. As we explore these motivations, let's connect for a moment. If you've ever experienced someone returning because they felt lonely or saw you as a convenient option, like this video and comment number 1. Share your thoughts or stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you navigated those situations. And if you're enjoying this conversation about Stoic relationships and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe for more content that empowers and inspires you. Returning to the heart of the matter, it's crucial to approach these situations with balance. Loneliness is not inherently bad, nor is seeking comfort. What matters is how these feelings are expressed and whether they lead to actions that respect both individuals involved. If their return is accompanied by accountability and a genuine desire to rebuild trust, it may be worth exploring. But if their actions reveal a pattern of seeking convenience without reciprocity, it's a clear signal to protect your peace. In the end, the power lies in your hands. You've done the work to grow, to heal, and to become more self-aware. Don't let their return, driven by loneliness or convenience, derail your progress. Instead, let it serve as a reminder of how far you've come and how much you deserve. True connection isn't about filling a void, it's about building something real and lasting. And that starts with clarity, intention, and a deep respect for yourself and your journey. 5. The role of nostalgia. When someone returns after no contact, nostalgia often plays a pivotal role in their decision. Nostalgia is a powerful force. It has the ability to transform the way we perceive the past, softening its edges and amplifying its highlights. But nostalgia, while deeply emotional, is also deeply unreliable. It's a lens through which we remember not how things were, but how we wanted them to be. Understanding this dynamic is crucial to interpreting why they've come back and what it truly means for you. Let's start with a fundamental question. Why does nostalgia have such a hold over us? Nostalgia taps into our desire for comfort and familiarity. It takes us back to moments that felt safe, joyful, or meaningful, even if those moments were fleeting. When someone is faced with uncertainty or dissatisfaction in their present, the past can begin to look like a sanctuary. It's a place where their memory selectively recalls the good times while conveniently minimizing the conflicts, struggles, or pain that may have defined the relationship. This selective memory can be particularly compelling when life becomes difficult. Perhaps they've experienced setbacks, heartbreak, or challenges that make their current situation feel overwhelming. In these moments, nostalgia can act as an escape, pulling them back toward a time when they felt more secure. And if you were a significant part of that time, their return is often fueled by a desire to recapture those feelings. But here's the critical question. Are they seeking you, or are they seeking the version of themselves they associate with you? Nostalgia doesn't just shape their perception of the past, it also shapes their perception of you. They may remember the times you supported them, the laughter you shared, or the way you made them feel valued and seen. But are they acknowledging the full scope of who you are now? Have they considered how you've grown, changed, or moved forward since they left? Their nostalgia might bring them back, but it's often tied to an idealized version of you, not the real, complex person you've become. This is where Stoicism provides an essential framework for navigating their return. In Stoic relationships, we strive for authenticity and clarity. We're not interested in illusions or half-truths. If someone returns driven by nostalgia, it's important to evaluate whether their intentions align with your reality. Are they ready to engage with you as you are today, or are they clinging to a version of the past that no longer exists? There's also a deeper layer to consider: the role of nostalgia in your own response. When they return, it's natural to feel a flood of emotions. Their presence might remind you of the good times you shared, reigniting feelings you thought had faded. But before you act on those feelings, take a step back and reflect. Are you responding to them, or are you responding to your own nostalgia? Are you seeing them clearly, or are you viewing them through the same rose-tinted lens they're using? Stoicism teaches us to question our perceptions and to distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. Nostalgia is not inherently bad. It's a reflection of the moments that shaped us and the connections that mattered. But it's also a story we tell ourselves, one that can obscure the truth if we're not careful. When someone returns, let their actions speak louder than your memories. Let their current behavior determine whether they deserve a place in your present, not just your past. It's also worth exploring how nostalgia can create a false sense of urgency. When they return, they might express a longing for what we used to have or a desire to go back to how things were. These words can be compelling, especially if you've been carrying your own memories of those times. But ask yourself, is it possible to go back? And more importantly, would I want to? The past cannot be recreated, it can only be remembered. True connection lies in building something new, not in trying to resurrect something that no longer fits. Their nostalgia-driven return is an opportunity for growth, both for them and for you. If they're willing to acknowledge the full reality of your relationship, both the highs and the lows, it may be possible to create a foundation for something stronger. But if their return is rooted solely in an idealized version of the past, it's unlikely to lead to lasting change. Nostalgia is a powerful motivator, but it's not a substitute for accountability, self-awareness, or genuine effort. For you, their return offers a chance to reflect on your own journey. Have you outgrown the version of yourself that existed in that relationship? Have you built a life that feels fulfilling and aligned with your values? If so, their return doesn't have to disrupt your progress. It can serve as a reminder of how far you've come and how much you've learned. Ultimately, nostalgia is a mirror. It reflects not just the past, but also our relationship with it. When someone returns after no contact, their nostalgia might be the spark that brought them back. But it's not enough to sustain a meaningful connection. To move forward, both of you must be willing to confront the truth, to let go of illusions, and to embrace the present with clarity and courage. This is the foundation of Stoic relationships, and it's what allows us to navigate these moments with strength and wisdom. 6. Self-reflection and genuine change. When someone returns after no contact, it's natural to wonder, have they truly changed? Amid the swirl of emotions and memories, there's a quiet hope that their reappearance signals growth, maturity, and a genuine desire to make things right. But how can you tell if their return is rooted in self-reflection and authentic change, or if it's just another cycle of familiar patterns? The answer lies in their actions, not their words. Self-reflection is a process that takes time and effort. It's not something people stumble into. It's a deliberate act of confronting their own mistakes, acknowledging their shortcomings, and making a commitment to do better. When someone returns after a period of silence, they may claim they've changed, but the real question is, have they demonstrated the change in tangible ways? For many people, no contact creates a kind of forced introspection. With the usual channels of communication cut off, they're left alone with their thoughts. This silence can be uncomfortable, but it also provides a space for growth. If they've used this time wisely, they may return with a clearer sense of accountability, a deeper understanding of what went wrong, and a readiness to take responsibility for their actions. But here's the key. Change is not just about realizing what went wrong. It's about taking consistent steps to make things right. Ask yourself this: what evidence do I have that they've genuinely reflected on their behavior? True change is visible in how they approach you, how they communicate, and how they handle the challenges that arise in rebuilding a connection. Have they made an effort to address the issues that led to the breakup or conflict? Are they showing vulnerability and a willingness to listen, or are they simply offering empty promises? Stoicism reminds us to focus on what we can observe and control, rather than getting lost in speculation or wishful thinking. Their words might sound sincere, but actions always speak louder. If they've truly changed, their behavior will reflect it. They'll respect your boundaries, prioritize open and honest communication, and demonstrate a commitment to growth, not just for the relationship, but for themselves. Another important question to consider is, what motivated their change? Did they take time to reflect and grow because they recognized the need to improve, or are they returning out of fear of losing you? Genuine change comes from within. It's driven by a desire to become a better version of oneself, not by external pressures or a fear of being alone. If their change is reactive rather than proactive, it's unlikely to last. Self-reflection also involves a willingness to accept consequences. If they've returned to make amends, are they prepared to face the pain or discomfort of addressing past wounds? Are they willing to rebuild trust slowly, without expecting immediate forgiveness or reconciliation? These are the hallmarks of someone who has truly reflected on their actions and is committed to making things right. But here's where the Stoic perspective becomes crucial. While their growth is important, your growth matters just as much. Their return might be an opportunity to evaluate their progress, but it's also an opportunity to assess your own. Have you healed from the pain they caused? Have you learned to set boundaries, to prioritize your own needs, and to approach relationships with clarity and strength? If their return disrupts your peace or brings old insecurities to the surface, it's a sign that more healing may be needed, either individually or as a pair. It's also worth asking, what do I want from this relationship? Their return might spark hope for a fresh start, but before you decide to reopen that door, take time to reflect on your own desires and goals. Are you willing to invest in rebuilding the connection, or would it be healthier to move forward separately? Remember, Stoicism teaches us to act with intention and to prioritize what aligns with our values. As you navigate their return, be cautious of rushing into decisions. True change takes time to reveal itself, and it's okay to take things slowly. Give yourself the space to observe their actions, to have open and honest conversations, and to evaluate whether their return aligns with your vision for the future. And if at any point you feel unsure or uneasy, trust that feeling. It's often your intuition guiding you toward what's best for you. Let's take a moment to connect. If you've ever experienced someone returning after no contact and noticed signs of genuine change, like this video in comment number 1. I'd love to hear your stories about how you recognized their growth, or how you realized their words didn't match their actions. And if you're enjoying these insights into Stoic relationships and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content that empowers and inspires you. Their return is not the conclusion of the story, it's just the beginning of a new chapter. Whether that chapter involves rebuilding the relationship or moving forward independently, the most important thing is that it aligns with your values and supports your growth. Self-reflection and genuine change are powerful forces, but they must be met with clarity, boundaries, and a commitment to mutual respect. This is how we navigate relationships with wisdom and strength, staying true to ourselves and the principles of Stoicism. 7. Testing boundaries. When someone returns after no contact, their actions often serve as a way of testing boundaries. They might not consciously frame it this way, but their behavior can reveal their intentions, their expectations, and their respect, or lack thereof, for the space you've created. Testing boundaries is not inherently negative, but it's a crucial dynamic to recognize and navigate with clarity. Why do people test boundaries? At its core, testing boundaries is about seeking clarity and control. By returning, they may be trying to determine where they stand in your life. Are you still emotionally available? Do they still hold a place in your heart? Have you moved on, or are they still a priority for you? These questions might be unspoken, but their actions are often designed to elicit answers. Sometimes this testing is subtle. A casual text, a harmless "I've been thinking about you," or a like on one of your social media posts. Other times it's more direct, a phone call, an unexpected visit, or an attempt to rekindle the relationship. Regardless of the approach, the underlying intent is the same: to gauge your reaction and assess whether the door remains open. Testing boundaries can also stem from insecurity. When someone feels uncertain about their place in your life, they might push against your boundaries to reassure themselves. But here's the critical question. Are they testing your boundaries out of genuine care, or are they doing so to regain a sense of control? Their motives matter because they speak to the sustainability of their return and the potential for a healthy dynamic moving forward. It's important to remember that boundaries are not just lines we draw for others, they're commitments we make to ourselves. If you've chosen no contact as a way to heal, to reflect, or to protect your peace, their return is not an invitation to abandon those commitments. Instead, it's an opportunity to reinforce them. Testing boundaries is only effective if you allow it to be. Stoicism teaches us to respond with calm clarity, to act in alignment with our values rather than being swayed by external pressures. Consider how they respond when they encounter your boundaries. Do they respect them, or do they push against them? Respecting boundaries is a sign of emotional maturity and self-awareness. It demonstrates that they're willing to honor your needs, even if it's uncomfortable for them. On the other hand, if they disregard your boundaries or attempt to manipulate them, it's a clear indication that their return is more about their needs than yours. Testing boundaries also reveals power dynamics. Relationships thrive on mutual respect and equality, but when one person consistently tests the other's limits, it creates an imbalance. If their return feels like an attempt to reassert control or to shift the dynamic in their favor, it's worth pausing to reflect on whether that aligns with your values and goals. Another aspect to consider is how their actions make you feel. Do you feel empowered, respected, and valued in their presence, or do you feel uncertain, anxious, or pressured? Your emotional response to their boundary testing is a valuable indicator of whether their return is healthy or harmful. Stoicism encourages us to trust our inner judgment, to recognize when something feels off, and to act accordingly. Testing boundaries is not inherently wrong. It's a natural part of navigating relationships, but it must be approached with care, respect, and a willingness to listen. If their actions demonstrate a genuine desire to understand and honor your boundaries, it may be a sign that they're ready to rebuild the connection on a healthier foundation. But if their return feels like an intrusion or a challenge to your autonomy, it's a signal to stand firm. This dynamic is also an opportunity for growth, for both of you. For them, it's a chance to reflect on their own behavior, to learn how to navigate relationships with respect and accountability. For you, it's an opportunity to practice self-advocacy, to affirm your boundaries, and to act in alignment with your values. Testing boundaries can be a moment of tension, but it can also be a moment of transformation. Ultimately, their return is not just a test of your boundaries, it's a test of their character. How they respond to your boundaries reveals whether they're truly ready to engage in a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. And how you uphold those boundaries reveals your commitment to your own well-being and growth. Testing boundaries is less about conflict and more about clarity. It's a way of understanding where you stand, what you need, and what you're willing to accept. When approached with wisdom and self-awareness, it becomes a tool for navigating relationships with strength and authenticity. This is the essence of Stoic relationships, building connections that honor your values, your growth, and your peace. The reasons they return after no contact are often complex, rooted in psychology, emotions, and personal circumstances. Whether it's the psychological impact of silence, unfinished emotional business, the influence of ego, loneliness, nostalgia, genuine change, or testing boundaries, their return reveals as much about them as it does about you. But here's the truth. Their return is not the most important part of this story. You are. Stoicism teaches us that the most valuable power we possess is the ability to choose our response. Their return may stir emotions, trigger memories, or even ignite hope, but it's your clarity, your boundaries, and your commitment to growth that will determine the next steps. This isn't just about understanding their motives, it's about understanding your own worth and staying true to it. When they return, take a moment to pause. Reflect on what you've learned during their absence. Have you grown stronger, clearer, and more in tune with your needs? Use that strength to evaluate their actions, not just their words. Genuine change, respect for boundaries, and accountability should guide your decisions, not fleeting emotions or nostalgia. Most importantly, remember that your peace is not negotiable, whether you choose to let them back into your life or move forward without them. Let your choice reflect your growth, your values, and your vision for a fulfilling life. This is the essence of Stoic relationships, building connections that are rooted in authenticity and mutual respect, while always prioritizing your own well-being. If this journey has sparked insights or reflections, I encourage you to carry them forward. Share your thoughts with those you trust, continue seeking wisdom, and remain committed to your growth. Thank you for joining me on this exploration, and I wish you strength, clarity, and peace as you navigate your relationships and your life.